Thanks very much for joining us today. We're going to take you through the way we think about learning and development and why it's important to us and ultimately how it's evolved over the years. And I'll start off really talking about onboarding. This is the fundamentals of our training, where we have focused our efforts over the last 5 years. And we think about onboarding through these 4 pillars: e-learning, classroom, the manager involvement, and of course peer involvement as well. Before I go to the next slide, by a show of hands, how many folks here rely on a trainer and a structured learning and development organization to train their reps? Okay, just a couple hands. And how many folks rely on the managers or even the reps to take new reps through the best practices and the agreed process? Okay, so I just want to say those things are not mutually exclusive, okay? You might start with the shadowing, and it makes sense then, once you're ready, to go ahead and develop into a full training organization. So, first things first is, we show these as equal now that we've gotten to this point over time. But starting off with the peer and the manager responsibilities, this worked well for us. It was organic, and it was fairly easy to develop. However, there were some pitfalls. We didn't have an understanding of the impact of the training. We had a hard time measuring the new hire ramps because we couldn't rely on the managers and peers to tell us about that effectively. And we had inconsistent messaging and inconsistent application of those best practices. So when we finally decided to invest more maturely in our training program, we decided that e-learning was a great place to start. What we did was we thought about e-learning as a way to give the reps an ability to focus on self-paced initial understanding of our content, so they could do that at home or at the hotel or at our office in those beginning days of joining our team. That LMS, usage of that LMS and the courses, it gave those reps that early view, okay? And it also gave us a sense of what they were up to with our content. And then finally, we even gave them this activity completion checklist. And that's more than just a schedule or an outline, but it's actually a robust packet of material for them to understand what they would be working on initially and, of course, what was coming later. The results of these kinds of executions were ultimately we could focus our classroom time on what was most important, which was the interactivity. It meant that we could review content that we knew the reps already looked at. We could apply the process or the systems usage and also get feedback from the reps about their understanding of our content, our products, our systems. That in-classroom time savings meant we could spend more time where we wanted to spend, which was actually with the customers and with their peers. But in the end, we were able to increase retention, we were able to improve the speed to market and also the revenues and the productivity of the reps. And finally, of course, it just meant they had constant access to the content. So the next module of our training program is our onboarding program is to think about the classroom. This is where we spend a lot of interactive time with the reps. It's on-site at our headquarters. We have a focus on products and, of course, process and skills. We set monthly objectives for the reps so that they have an understanding of what's coming and what their success will look like when they get there. And once we're done with the training, we're able to do reviews and feedback. And you'll see here in a second, that's not just with the trainer or the teacher, but it's also with the subject matter experts and their managers. In the end, the focus of the classroom shouldn't be transfer of knowledge. It should actually be community building. It should be the collaboration. It should be the best practice sharing. We're looking for functional consistency, so we want to ensure that training is fairly consistent across classes. Our outcomes, we're looking for increased likelihood of success because, as you guys know, once you've invested in recruiting and hiring folks, you really want them to stick around. You don't want to waste that investment. And then finally, we have better awareness of strengths and weaknesses when we have that collaboration, that level of collaboration, as opposed to simply knowledge push. Once we're able to get past the classroom, then we're able to bring their managers in. The managers are going to actually provide curriculum contribution in the first place, but they'll be establishing KPIs, including targets and account lists. They'll be reviewing scorecards with the trainer about the reps, and then with the reps about their score. They'll be doing weekly follow-ups throughout the training so that they're starting to develop that relationship before that rep comes out of training. And they'll do their first quarterly business review. Again, trying to establish that cadence and some of the vernacular that we expect from the reps when they think about their business. Ultimately, it means a natural evolution, and it's based on the rep and the customer feedback. That evolution of the program, it allows for consistency, but also growth and iteration. It gives us functional consistency for the reps themselves so that we understand what they're doing and how they're approaching the role. It gives us that early rep and manager connection that I mentioned before, which is critical so that when the rep finally jumps on the floor, they're not also nervous about working with this new person. And then finally, the training revisions awareness that the manager has so that as the rep is learning new content or new material, the manager's actually aware of it. The last thing you want is a rep coming to their manager and the manager showing that they don't actually know what the rep has been trained on. So that collaboration is critical between manager and trainer. And then finally, and getting back to this point about these things not being mutually exclusive, you still want the peers activity. You still want to have that shadowing. So what we do is we structure the shadowing. We put a schedule to it. We put content to it. We actually indicate in a direction, first shadowing of the tenured reps, and then the tenured reps can actually shadow the new reps as they're talking to customers in those early conversations. And then, of course, we have KPIs as well. And we're now getting to the point where we can actually incentivize reps and their success with new hires. That customer interaction evaluation that I mentioned, it's critical so that we can identify comprehension of the value prop so that we don't send a rep out into the field before they actually have proven their understanding of our products. When we think about role-playing, it's not just in the classroom, it's not just in front of other new hires, but it's in front of the tenured peers as well as the managers. And again, the whole point is this holistic view to the business. And then finally, another business review and proposal template review for the reps so that, again, they're just very familiar with all the tools that we're asking them to utilize. Again, I can't stress enough, L&D has really become a core part of our culture. You know, we think about success through learning as opposed to simply the revenue results that the rep delivers. When we build community amongst the reps because of that best practice sharing, they have the ability to then rely on each other as well, not just their managers. The messaging is consistent and it's of a high quality because we're involving all levels in the organization. And then finally, this collaborative approach to the pitch creation and this refinement of the pitch and the materials as well that's coming directly from peers and from the new reps. Again, it just means for a more robust set of materials and content. So the beauty is that we actually have proof this has been successful. What we have been able to show is acceleration. Acceleration of revenue contribution, not only in their first year comparing cohorts, but even from year 1 to year 2, we show acceleration there as well. And the best thing you can do is get your new reps succeeding fast. That proves the program that you have, it proves the product that you have, and it oftentimes will add a little bit more energy and excitement to the tenured reps who maybe have been around for a little while. So next up, I'm going to bring up Nick Flynn. He's our SVP of Enterprise Sales and Account Management at Shutterstock. He'll walk you through our ongoing development and our career tracks and how we think about our management philosophies.
Thanks, Richard.
Sure.
So obviously, when we started creating an L&D program, we really started with onboarding, right? We started with how do we get our reps producing more revenue faster. We even get asked about new rep productivity on earnings calls. But we then recognize that it's not only about onboarding, right? Our head of training likes to remind me that training is not an event. It's an iterative process where you're continuing to develop skills of your employees. And so we started looking at training for our employees on an ongoing basis. But in order to do that, we had to start with what we want the outcomes to be. what were the key KPIs that we were going to measure in terms of building a training team as well as putting resources against training from both a management and peer standpoint. So it obviously starts with revenue contribution. What was the needle we could move in the first year, second year, even third year? Average sales price was a big one, right? Are we getting deep enough into our customers to be able to sign bigger deals, to be able to include other offices? Contact volume. How many customers was it taking to get to a proposal to an opportunity stage? Lead qualification and consumption, right? As leads come in through different channels like marketing or customer service, even the product on the site, how quickly could the reps consume them and how quickly could they qualify them, again, getting them to opportunity stage. And referral creation and conversion. This is predominantly reference to our SMB team and also our SDR team. How many referrals were we creating and what was our conversion rate? And then most importantly, not only customer retention, but also employee retention. Were the programs, what was our existing retention rate of both those two key stakeholders, customers and employees, and how could we improve on that? So we set metrics against these key KPIs, and then we looked back and invested in the program. So as we think about learning and development, we typically build a curriculum throughout the year. And so it starts with product update and enhancements, right? At Shutterstock, our team, we have one sales team that sells a portfolio of products. Our teams need to be comfortable and confident in all of those products as they update, as they launch new features, and they need to be able to articulate that value proposition to the customer. Functional skills is something we focus on. So our sales teams are organized by customer segment, whether that's brand or media or SMB. And then within those customer segments, we have new and renewal teams. And a lot of the skills in terms of those bifurcated functions are similar, but there's different nuances as you get into the different customer segments. Process, it's what allowed us to scale. And obviously, between marketing and L&D, we keep a close eye on what our competition is doing. Looking to anticipate, as we go into negotiation stage, what our competition will be coming back with. Customer engagement feedback. This is another extremely important thing that we focus on, particularly for our renewal team, right? What's the agreement you've gotten from the customer once a contract is signed, right? A contract that we don't drive usage throughout an organization is almost as bad as not winning that contract from the beginning, because you've spent money to win that contract. And the only way you're going to see a renewal is if you drive usage and you walk away with a happy customer. And so we talk a lot about what are the milestones in the first 90 days of that relationship with a new customer that our client success management team needs to hit. Continual upgrades to systems. We typically see a product launch throughout the year. When we launch a product, the reps are very well aware of what our targets against either conversion or retention or ASP are. We also, synthesize the marketing plan with the product education. And then lastly, kind of you think about the end of the year, our L&D team really starts to recognize and document some of the trends we're seeing in the industry. What are our customers doing differently than they were, say, at the beginning of the year? What are some new processes that we need to follow to get deals done faster? And as we go into the next year, it's really account planning. Now, account planning lives with our managers, but the L&D team helps provide that foundation as to getting to an organic buildup that we can use to model out the following year. So we look at our two, really bifurcated roles within our sales organization. You have new business and you have renewals. And we're continually training, updating our functional abilities within those segments. And so, we talked a little bit about lead consumption and qualification. This is incredibly important for the new business team. Optimal output. So we have a global sales team, right? How many contacts, what's the number? What's the benchmark of contacts to getting a proposal to opportunity? Well, that can be different in Brazil to Italy to the US. I mean, it really depends on the different business cultures that you're working in. Multi-channel approach, right? It's balancing email, it's getting reps out of their inbox, but it's also when to use the phone. I had a rep come up to me the other day and he showed me a deal that was closed on WhatsApp. That was the first one. Prospecting emails and calls. What is the right velocity that we should be spending out? I mean, this is particularly for our SDRs. Are we doing enough of showing the customer that we know their business? Are we relating our products to their needs? And then deeper and lateral discovery. I mean, this is something that we can't preach enough. This is getting our understanding customer needs, not only talking to stakeholders, but also talking to influencers. And on the renewal side, it's managing your book of business. It's getting to cross-sell, upsell, which is directly related to deeper and lateral discovery. And then anticipating the optimal renewal timing. Right? It's creating triggers in Salesforce as to when that renewal is up. And what are the triggers in terms of on a customer's account where we should be looking to push that renewal early? So we'll talk a little bit about career track, right? And we've tried to and strive to create a culture of career development. Obviously easier said than done. There's a ton of opportunities out there, particularly in the technology space. But I think this is something that we've done well at. We can continue to improve. But I know that, for example, 50% of my direct reports either started as frontline managers or individual contributors. And that's something we're proud of. We watched them grow over the past 3 or 4 years throughout the organization. I think one of the things we do is we try to create clear and consistent career tracks. Right? So we know if a rep is on SMB, the next natural step for them is most likely a client success manager. The next natural step for an SDR is a client success manager. And that essentially covers about 80% of the career development. You do see outliers. You do see folks who are just rock stars and are able to make that jump, skip level jump. Typically, most of our managers come from either team leads or product specialists. But it's also about finding the right fit for people, right? I mean, as everyone knows, your highest sales performer may not be your best manager, right? The autonomy and drive and account management that makes that person successful may not allow that person to be doing greater good for the organization. And so it's really finding that balance. And not all growth requires promotion, right? There's only so many manager jobs. And we kind of, shame on us if we lose a high performer who we don't think is a good fit for a manager, but finds a management role somewhere else. Because it's really about how do you continue to evolve their career, right? We have things like certification, product specialists, team leads. We give people projects where they can really share their expertise, but not in necessarily a formal management way. And that's been successful for us. It's been successful in keeping kind of our top reps, getting them to that 4, 5, and even in some cases 6-year mark. But I think really development is just, it's all about the feedback loop. I mean, that's what's been successful for us, right? We have formalized a feedback loop from, when you come into the onboarding process that Richard described, what are you taking away from that onboarding process? What did you learn? What did you like most? Did you like classroom? Was it e-learning? We want the reps' feedback on the trainers. We want the trainers' feedback on the reps. And that also works with the managers, right? And the people that really embrace doing this feedback and start to look at the business holistically are most of the people that get promoted within Shutterstock on the sales team. So as we think about some of our management philosophies, I think that it starts with setting clear direction and objectives, right? When a new rep starts, what are your expectations from that rep? Do you expect them to go on 20 meetings a week? Do you expect them to make 100 calls? Maybe, but that needs to be clear from day one, right? They need to be able to sign up for the expectations of the business. As much as we want people to develop their careers, as much as we want to promote within, those promotions and development, they need to align with the business, right? The needs of the business. We can't just make roles to keep people happy or keep them retained. Everything we do needs to drive toward the financial outcomes that the business is striving for. Support in terms of coaching and mentoring. I think we look at management as a resource, right? We are a resource to our salespeople. We are there to unblock blockers, whether they're internal or external. We're there to help with account strategy. We're there to help with getting creative with proposals. I think there's honest and timely feedback. I mean, I see this most with kind of more junior managers. It's so critical that you provide that feedback in real time. We coach our managers that walking out of every single meeting with a customer, right? 2 things the rep did well, 2 things they can work on. Even going into that meeting, what are you trying to accomplish? If you could tell me the next step now, what would it be? And let's work toward that. And then really celebrating success. And this is done in a number of different ways, but I think it's super important. We create things like, there's financial success, but there's also kind of getting at the spirit of competition, right? We have all types of scoreboards. We have all types of, whether it's our revenue driving activity scoreboards or revenue versus goal. We've done things like President's Club. Sometimes right now we have a Q2 contest to move our sales training to a more exotic place if the team hits a goal in a certain region. So there's a number of things that we do, but we constantly want to celebrate success. We constantly want, and not only celebrate success, but give the why that person was successful. Why did that deal close? What was the root of it? Who were the key stakeholders? So I'm gonna wrap up here, but definitely want to take a couple questions for either Richard and I and about some of the content that you've seen here. So I think the training effect at Shutterstock, I mean, the outcomes have been, they've been fairly obvious, but extremely effective, right? So we've reduced costs. We've reduced things like turnover costs. We've reduced, because we've increased our efficiencies. We feel like we've built a lot of employee confidence, particularly, which is extremely important, as I said, in a portfolio sale like ours, where the reps are selling multiple products. We've engaged the employees, and we take surveys to understand how engaged they are. And engaged employees are more productive. And obviously, more productive employees drive more revenue, which is what our department strives for. So that's where we're going to wrap up. So we'd love to take some questions from the audience. Yeah.
Go from SMB to client success.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the thought process there, and then what's the step after client success?
So client success is really handling our renewals. So those are customers that are part of our Shutterstock ecosystem. And then after that, they move to what we call our senior sales solutions managers, which is really new business. So just in terms of the movement, we've seen more success in having that linear sequence than going from SMB to out in the field to meeting customers and navigating large organizations. So basically, the thinking is that at the client success manager role, they can start to understand how an enterprise works, what the workflow is. They're dealing with the customer every day. And so when they gravitate to a new business role, they have some of the inner workings when they're trying to bring on new logos. Other questions? No?
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
What's your ramp up on Shutterstock?
In terms of?
In terms of training new employees and bringing them on board, what's your ramp time?
So we, on the enterprise side, we look at about 90 days. And on the SMB side?
On SMB, we actually do it in about 3 weeks. Yeah, so we get them generating revenue in their first month.
You said you guys incentivize the trainer reps that the reps who train your new client, your new employees. Sorry, how do you guys do that, or what do you guys use to what metrics do you use to incentivize them? I guess.
In terms of, let me just make sure I understand the question. So, do we incentivize the peer-to-peer training?
Yes. Yeah, that was a question. Sorry.
So we don't. I think that there's no financial incentives. These are typically people who want to be part of it. They look at it as an opportunity for, again, it could be career growth for them. People who do this well can, navigate to the next level. But I think also they were trained by someone. So there's a little bit of a feeling of, I'm going to give something back. And, we found that people like sharing knowledge. People like sharing their own styles. But there's no monetary incentive.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so the question is Yeah, I think there's in the onboarding process. Well, Richard, why don't you answer that?
Yeah, I think for our scoreboards, what we try to do is make contests that are achievable by everyone in the organization. And it doesn't mean that they're false or straw man in any way. It just means that they are very specific. And so even if you're at the bottom of the scoreboard, you're still producing, you're still contributing, is the word I want to say. We would never put reps up on a board with $0 or reps that are on plans or any of that kind of stuff. Like, we construct our contests away from that and towards the success.
Going along with the scoreboard, have you guys used any gamification tools, or is it more of catering these scoreboards to the specific contest or whatever?
Yeah, I can take that, Nick. So actually, we've been using Level 11 for a few years, and we love it. I mean, it's been fantastic. Level 11 has a TV product that allows us to put the scoreboards up on screens, but then they also have scorecards that allow us to have one-to-one interactions with our reps. And then they even have ticker tapes so that you can see that in real time, you can see that data changing. We got to wrap.